First thing for me to say is that I'm really, especially here, not a disinterested observer in this process, as our house in Tickenham looks straight along the line of where we'll have a nice black line straight out of our front window as we look down across the valley. So my wife, who's the most powerful pressure group in the constituency, is likely to make that point at the outset. We've now had, as of yesterday, we had crossed 1,480 letters on the issue, which makes it by far the biggest mailbag that we've had for a number of years on this issue from across the constituency. Yesterday, I applied to the Speaker of the House of Commons to get a Commons debate on this issue. And this is quite an important point because there seem to me to be two issues here. One is the merits or otherwise of the case of National Grid itself, and the other is a question of accountability and our ability to be able to question anybody about these decisions. Now, it's highly possible, I have to warn you, that the Speaker will actually say to me, you cannot have a debate on this subject in the House of Commons because under the law, nobody's responsible. No Minister of the Crown is responsible for what happens under the IPC. Well, that would make a point in itself, I think, but far better to have to actually get that debate on the floor and to be able to raise some of the questions. I think the idea that something that could be of crucial impact to public health and the environment and not have anybody who's accountable within a democratically elected government is an outrage. And that needs to change. I think for me the whole issue here boils down to one thing, and that is that National Grid measure cost in different units than we measure cost. Their cost is entirely monetary. For people who have to live and look at it, the cost is about quality of life, about the environment, about questions of public health, and also the fact that they'll make a quick decision. We've got to look at it for 50 years. And so there is, as the CPRE paper made it I thought, a very good point, this is all about proper through-life cost. So the letter that many of you will have seen that I got back from National Grid, which effectively said, by the way, we've done a report, it's on our website, why don't you look at it? Which I, even in the spirit of Christmas in which it arrived, was finding it rather hard to keep a good temper over. But one of the most amazing things to me about that letter was for a company that claims it doesn't have the technology to do underwater cabling, it was able to put a price on it, which seems to me quite an intellectual feat. I don't know how many of you were at the meeting in Nailsea, but there was one moment in that meeting that sticks in my mind, and I asked them, you say that the current proposal is about £90 million or thereabouts. You say that a system that looks like the New York, New Jersey system would be about £500 million. Supposing that we multiply the cost up 5 or 6 times from the current pylon programme, what would that mean in terms of our electricity? What would it mean in terms of the cost that we have to pay? The answer, less than 1% on your electricity bill would be the cost of laying it all underground. So now, if you ask most people rationally, would you be willing to pay less than 1% extra on your electricity bill to remove the environmental and health potential of this system? You would get virtually 100% in agreement. But it seems to me that they have the National Grid and the IPC are in a very enviable position. They get to determine the terms of the consultation, the length of the consultation. They assess what they think the consultation said, and they determine the outcome. I kind of quite like that as an electoral system. We decided the date, we decided what the result was, and then declared the result according to what we wanted in the first place. It's quite an attractive system, really. So there are a number of things that we have to do now. Number one is delay it as much as possible, because if there's a change of government, there will be a change in the law back to make the Secretary of State responsible. Now that may not change the decisions made, but it sure increases the accountability, and it gives us a clear line through to judicial review, which seems missing in the current legislation, something that's very, very worrying. And I apologise to Mr. and Mrs. James if I had this rant already this evening at the surgery. At least it's consistent, isn't it? And then we do have to pursue a constant policy of showing the strength of public opinion and why it's not acceptable to continue where we are. Now, just for the sake of completeness, I have always believed, and you can say this is cynical, but I've just dealt with a lot of planners and a lot of applications on planning, but I've always believed that Route 2 was in there to be so outrageous that it would be rejected. And then people would say, well, there is a public consensus for Route 1, which is a clear ploy, and it seems to be doing very well. I also think, just for what it's worth, that if I were looking as a company at a cost that was ranging somewhere between 90 and 500 million, I would put plenty of money aside to say, well, why don't we compromise and bury the cables near centres of population, but leave the rest of them as carried by pylons. And frankly, if you were to ask me what I think the position currently is, I think that maybe is where this current debate's heading. But I don't think we should leave it at that. I think that's too much of giving them what they want. This is about short-term results for shareholders, with us paying the long-term price, those of us who have to look out our windows at it. And so that's roughly where I think we are, if that's of any help.